In modern times, most drivers' paths to IndyCar have been pretty standard. Most start in karting, then proceed to a ladder of junior Formula Car series, currently USF 2000, Indy Pro 2000, then Indy Lights, before finally reaching IndyCar. Many IndyCar drivers also come from the European Formula One ladder, currently F4, F3, F2, then F1, and while the ladders change and evolve over the years, and it's not unusual to run some combination of the IndyCar and Formula One ladders, or run a Formula Car series not officially in the ladder, most of the current 2022 IndyCar field followed a relatively similar path. However, these are 6 drivers with the most unique career paths to IndyCar amongst the 2022 field. Before his first start in Champ Car at Surfers Paradise in November 2005, Will Power had just finished a season of World Series by Renault, having previously raced 2 years in British Formula 3, a pretty standard resume for a driver coming through the ranks in Europe at the time. However, the unique part of Will Power's career starts before that. Power is one of the only drivers in the IndyCar field to not start in karting. Instead, his first racing experience came in a Datsun 1200 saloon car in his native Australia in his teens, very unusual for an IndyCar driver in the modern era. He then moved on to a more conventional path in Australian Formula Fords and Formula Holden. While Takuma Sato started his racing career in karting like most other modern IndyCar drivers, the very unusual thing about his career was that he didn't start karting until he was 19 years old. This makes him the latest starter in racing amongst the 2022 IndyCar field, and one of only a handful of drivers to make it to the top levels of open-wheel racing starting this late in modern time. But Takuma would catch up from his late start quickly. After just a year or two of karting, he quickly jumped to Formula 3 in 1999, and by 2002 was in Formula 1, where he had an 8-year career before moving to IndyCar in 2010. It's well known that Jimmie Johnson has the most unique path to IndyCar as the 7-time NASCAR Cup champion before entering IndyCar in 2021. A NASCAR to IndyCar switch is extremely rare and never done by someone with a profile of Jimmie Johnson ever. In addition, even his career leading up to NASCAR was unusual. While most NASCAR Cup drivers gain experience racing short track ovals, commonly in late models, super late models, sprints, or midgets, Jimmie started with a successful motocross career. He then moved to off-road racing before jumping straight to the NASCAR Busch Series in 1998. Although only racing part-time since 2014, Ed Carpenter has the distinction, along with Jimmie Johnson, of being the only regular drivers in the series to not come from a road racing background. Instead, Ed started his career in midgets and sprint cars on short ovals across America. Through the 70s, this was a common path to IndyCar, before quickly being replaced by drivers from sports cars and Formula cars by the 80s. In 1996, there was a brief rejuvenation of drivers from the midget and sprint car ranks with the formation of the all-oval Indy Racing League. But even though the IRL kept an all-oval schedule for 10 years, most of the drivers in the series were in fact still from a road racing background. When the series first visited a road course in 2005, Carpenter was already one of just a few oval short track drivers remaining in the series, and he managed to stay full-time in the series through 2013, by which time road courses and street circuits now far outnumbered ovals on the schedule, and the IndyCar oval heritage was once again very much a thing of the past. Most of 2-time champion Josef Newgarden's junior career is pretty standard. After karting, he went to the Skip Barber Series in 2006, a popular step for many junior drivers at the time. Then, he moved to Europe and raced Formula Ford, Formula Palmer Audi, and GP3 before returning to the USA to Indy Lights. But the unusual aspect of his career is what he started racing before karting. Not dirt bikes, not BMX, which would be unusual but not unheard of, but instead, Josef started in scooter racing. Yes, motorized gas scooter racing. Before all the electric scooter share apps, sanctioned scooter or GoPed racing was a thing, and it was Josef Newgarden's introduction to competitive motor racing at 13 years old. Penske sensation Scott McLaughlin started his racing career pretty conventionally in karting in New Zealand and Australia. However, the Kiwi driver did not attempt an open-wheel career, instead moving straight to the popular V8 supercars in Australia. He started in the V8 Supercar Development Series in 2008 before moving up to the International Championship in 2013. In 2017, he'd be tapped to join DJR Team Penske, one of the top teams in V8 supercars, co-owned by Roger Penske at the time. Scott would go on to dominate V8 supercars for the next few years, winning the 2018, 2019, and 2020 championships. This would lead Penske to give McLaughlin an IndyCar test and eventually a full-season IndyCar ride in 2021, making Scott the first driver to move straight from a sports car series to IndyCar with no real open-wheel experience in a long time, perhaps since Scott Pruitt did so in the late 80s. So, that wraps up the top 6 most unique career paths to IndyCar amongst the 2022 field. I really enjoy researching drivers' early careers, so this was a fun video for me to make, and if you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a like and a comment, and let me know what other topics you'd like me to cover in my next video.